Picture this. The courtroom is silent. The air so thick with tension you could cut it with a knife. On one side sits Drake, the self-proclaimed Sixth God, flanked by his lawyers, eyes locked forward with a cold determination. On the other side, the shadow of Kendrick Lamar looms large even though he's not physically present. His name echoes in every whispered conversation. The judge raises the gavel, and just as the world braces itself to finally see Kendrick's mysterious contract that could decide everything, the shocking words ring out: public access denied. The entire courtroom gasps. Yes, you heard that right. Kendrick's contract, the very document fans and insiders have been dying to see, has been sealed shut, leaving everyone wondering, what is being hidden? Rumors swirl that this contract holds explosive secrets clauses that could end careers, expose betrayals, or even prove once and for all who truly runs the rap game. Some insiders claim it's not just a contract, it's a weapon. And the fact that the court has blocked the public from ever seeing it, that's only adding fuel to the fire. Fans are stunned, rivals are whispering, and the industry has been thrown into chaos. This isn't just a legal decision, it's the start of hip-hop's biggest storm yet. The moment the judge's words echoed through the courtroom, shockwaves rippled not just among the lawyers and reporters seated inside, but far beyond those walls. Outside, fans who had camped overnight for any glimpse of justice in this rap saga were left in disbelief. Whispers turned into frantic phone calls, and the buzz on social media began exploding within seconds. People wanted answers, and instead, they got a lock and key slammed on what was supposed to be the most revealing piece of evidence in the case. Drake's face remained unreadable, but those close enough to observe swore they saw the slightest smirk creep across his lips. To him, the ruling meant one less threat in a battle already littered with betrayals, backroom dealings, and unexpected alliances. But the smirk didn't last long, because Kendrick's silence in the courtroom was louder than any verse he had ever dropped. The absence itself felt strategic, almost like he knew this would play out in his favor eventually. Behind the scenes, insiders whispered that Kendrick's legal team had fought relentlessly to keep the contract buried. Sources close to the situation claimed there were clauses so unusual, so unorthodox, that revealing them publicly could shake the entire industry's foundation. One rumored clause supposedly dictated that Kendrick had the right to veto collaborations between certain artists and labels, giving him hidden leverage over who could or couldn't work with Drake in the future. Another insider claimed the contract contained financial stipulations that might expose Drake's reliance on backdoor funding tied to powerful but controversial figures in the music business. Whatever the truth, the judge's ruling to block public access only deepened suspicions, as though there was something dangerous buried in that stack of paper. Emotions began spiraling among those closest to both artists. Drake's longtime associates argued behind closed doors about how to spin the outcome. "This works for us," one insider was overheard saying, "because as long as the world doesn't see what's inside, we can shape the narrative." Yet another countered with unease, "No, this is worse. People are going to think we're hiding something. Drake's enemies are going to eat this alive." Meanwhile, Kendrick's camp celebrated quietly, but not without tension. His family, known for staying away from the public eye, reportedly argued at a private gathering. One cousin insisted the secrecy was the only way to protect Kendrick's reputation, while another voiced fear that hiding the truth would only make him look guilty in the court of public opinion. Fans online became the loudest voices in this storm. Tweets poured in, some defending Kendrick with unwavering loyalty, insisting that his privacy must be protected, while others blasted him for ducking transparency in a case that demanded accountability. Instagram went wild with memes pitting Kendrick as a shadowy mastermind pulling strings behind the curtain, while Drake was portrayed as the slick operator grinning because he knew something the rest of the world didn't. TikTok creators dramatized the courtroom moment, reenacting the gavel strike and looping Kendrick's name in bold captions. What was supposed to be a simple legal decision had morphed into the kind of spectacle only hip-hop's biggest stars could generate. As the day stretched into night, rumors piled higher. A so-called leaked page began circulating online, claiming to be part of Kendrick's contract. It mentioned a mysterious performance clause that allegedly tied Kendrick's releases to Drake's chart performances. If true, it would mean Kendrick's career moves had been deliberately timed to counter Drake's dominance. But was this page authentic, or just another fabrication thrown into the chaos? Experts weighed in, some claiming the formatting matched industry contracts, others dismissing it as a hoax. Regardless of the truth, the damage had already been done. Fans debated fiercely, the narrative grew messier, and both Kendrick and Drake found themselves caught in a storm no ruling could silence. Press went into overdrive, demanding answers from anyone remotely connected to the case. Drake's father was ambushed by paparazzi while leaving a restaurant in Los Angeles. When asked about the ruling, he shook his head and muttered, "All I can say is people don't know half the story. And when they find out, they're gonna be hurt." The cryptic statement only fueled speculation. Was he hinting at something buried in Kendrick's contract, or was he implying that Drake himself had secrets he didn't want revealed? Meanwhile, Kendrick's childhood friends from Compton were interviewed, some fiercely defending him as a man of integrity who would never sign a deal that compromised his values, while others admitted they had seen him change over the years. Becoming more guarded and calculated. Back inside the industry, executives whispered nervously. If Kendrick's contract contained clauses about ownership, royalties, or control that broke from the usual mold, it could inspire other artists to demand the same and that threatened the powerful labels. Drake's team tied closely to these executives faced pressure not to let this case spiral into a precedent that might loosen their grip on the industry. Tensions ran high in private meetings. One executive reportedly slammed his fist on the table, yelling, "If that contract leaks, every artist we got is gonna want the same deal." This isn't just about Drake and Kendrick, it's about the future of control. These weren't just rap battles anymore. This was corporate warfare disguised as personal beef. As the dust settled from the ruling, the drama only thickened. Drake, breaking his silence, posted a cryptic photo on his Instagram story. It showed nothing but a chessboard, one piece missing, and the caption read, "Check, not mate." Fans immediately dissected the post. Was Drake declaring victory? Or was he warning Kendrick that the game was far from over? Hours later, Kendrick's team fired back subtly, releasing a clip from one of his unreleased songs where he raps, "They hide what they fear, I show what I own." The internet erupted. Even without naming names, everyone knew the shots were aimed directly at Drake. For fans, the line between music, personal conflict, and courtroom drama had blurred beyond recognition. Every move was analyzed like a clue, every silence treated like strategy. Families were dragged into the spectacle, old friendships tested, and the music world stood divided. Drake's supporters painted him as the wronged party whose opponent was hiding behind technicalities. Kendrick's loyalists argued that he was being unfairly targeted, his privacy violated in a witch hunt designed to undermine his career. Yet, in the middle of all this, the truth of what lay inside that contract remained hidden, a mystery that seemed too dangerous for the world to handle. And just when everyone thought the day couldn't get any more chaotic, whispers emerged that someone inside the court, a clerk, an assistant, maybe even a lawyer, was considering leaking the entire document to the press. The stakes were suddenly higher than ever. If the contract surfaced unofficially, it could ignite an even bigger scandal, one that neither Drake nor Kendrick could control. That was the moment when both camps realized this was not a battle that would be fought solely in the courtroom. This was going to spill out into homes, onto phones, into the ears of every fan who cared about hip-hop culture. And as the night sky darkened over Los Angeles, it was clear the fight had only just begun. Whispers of a possible leak spread faster than wildfire. By the next morning, every major gossip outlet had splashed headlines about the missing contract, and blogs were already speculating which insider had both the access and the motive to expose it. Some pointed fingers at court clerks, while others suggested someone from Drake's own camp was considering turning on him, fed up with being silenced. Fans fueled the frenzy with their own theories, claiming that Kendrick himself might be orchestrating a shadow play keeping the contract sealed in court while leaking it piece by piece to control the narrative on his terms. Whatever the truth, the tension was unbearable. Inside Drake's circle, chaos erupted. His managers stormed into a closed-door meeting, his voice trembling with anger. "We can't afford a leak right now. If even one page gets out, it's not just about Kendrick, it's about every skeleton we've tried to keep buried." Another voice shot back, "Then lock it down harder. Pay off whoever needs paying off. We care. And let this thing see the light of day." But Drake himself sat in silence, sipping a drink, his eyes scanning the room like he was calculating moves 3 steps ahead. Finally, he spoke, his tone calm but chilling. "If they want to play dirty, I'll remind them who runs this board. Nobody leaks anything without consequences." His words sent a shiver down spines, a reminder that the rap game wasn't just about beats and lyrics, it was about power, leverage, and survival. Meanwhile, Kendrick's camp was experiencing a different kind of turmoil. Some of his closest allies worried the secrecy was beginning to backfire. One friend confronted him during a private rehearsal saying, "People out there think you're hiding something ugly, man. You're supposed to be the one they trust, the one who speaks truth. If you let this narrative spin, it could ruin the legacy you've built." Kendrick didn't raise his voice, but his reply carried weight. "They want to trap me in their story. If I give them the contract, they control the ending. If I keep it sealed, I write the next chapter." The room fell silent, but not everyone was convinced. Loyalty was beginning to fracture under the pressure. The media frenzy only grew worse when an anonymous email landed in the inboxes of 3 major journalists. The subject line read, "Proof they don't want you to see." Attached were 2 blurry images supposedly snapped from inside the courtroom file. One showed a paragraph mentioning conditional performance restrictions, while the other displayed numbers that looked like payout percentages. Though the authenticity couldn't be verified, the fact that such images existed at all shook both camps. Within hours, hashtags like #KendrickContract and #DrakeSecrets were trending worldwide. Fans dissected every blurry line, treating it like gospel. Some insisted the restrictions proved Kendrick had the power to delay or block Drake's releases, while others argued it was just standard legal jargon twisted for drama. Drake's mother, usually quiet about her son's controversies, was reportedly distraught. Sources close to the family claimed she broke down in tears after reading some of the online comments. "They're painting him as a villain," she told a confidant. "They don't see how much he's sacrificed for his music, for his family." Her pain only added fuel to the emotional weight of the case, giving fans a glimpse of the human cost behind the headlines. And then another twist. A former producer who once worked with both Drake and Kendrick went on a live stream and dropped a bombshell. He claimed that years ago, during a heated studio session, Drake had accused Kendrick of selling his soul to the suits, and warned him that one day those contracts would come back to haunt him. "I remember the look on Kendrick's face," the producer said, his voice shaking. "It was like he knew Drake was right, but he couldn't walk away. And now here we are." The live stream went viral within minutes, and suddenly fans began connecting dots, wondering if this contract was proof of that long-forgotten warning. Kendrick, however, didn't flinch. Instead, he doubled down in his silence. Rather than issuing a statement, he released a single cryptic post on social media, a black and white photo of a locked vault, captioned simply, "Not everything is meant to be opened." The internet exploded again. Some fans praised him for his restraint, calling it poetic and powerful. Others accused him of arrogance, saying he was taunting both Drake and the public. Every word, every image became ammunition in a war that was being fought on every platform imaginable. In private, Kendrick's family wasn't handling it as gracefully. His brother, who had always stood by him, reportedly confronted him during a family dinner. "This isn't just about you anymore. People are dragging our name, Mom is getting calls from strangers, and fans are turning on us. Maybe hiding that paper isn't worth it." Kendrick's reply was sharp, almost cold. "My silence protects us. If the world wants blood, they'll never get it from me." His brother slammed his hand on the table and walked out, leaving the family divided. While all of this unfolded, Drake decided to make his next move. During a surprise appearance at a Toronto nightclub, he grabbed the mic mid-performance and spoke directly to the crowd. "They can hide their papers, they can seal their files, but truth always comes to light. And when it does, remember who never needed to lie." The crowd erupted, phones shot up, and within hours, clips of his speech were trending across the globe. It was a calculated play, framing himself as the transparent one while painting Kendrick as the figure in shadows. His fans rallied behind him, but Kendrick's supporters saw it as manipulation, another way to spin the narrative. The court clerk rumors only intensified when a tabloid published an anonymous interview claiming someone inside had been offered 6 figures to leak the contract. Though no names were revealed, the insinuation alone was enough to send both camps into a frenzy. Lawyers began investigating, threats were whispered, and at least one staff member reportedly resigned under pressure. Behind closed doors, both sides knew that if the document slipped into the public domain, all bets were off. And yet, even as the chaos raged, another unexpected twist surfaced. A well-known rapper from Atlanta, once close to both Drake and Kendrick, hinted in a podcast that the contract might contain not just industry secrets, but personal ones. If people knew what was in that paper, it's not just careers on the line, it's families, friendships, legacies. That's why they're so scared. The statement sent chills through listeners, raising the stakes beyond music, beyond business. This wasn't just about contracts anymore, it was about lives intertwined in ways fans couldn't even imagine. By the end of that week, it felt as though the entire world was holding its breath. Drake was preparing for his next calculated move. Kendrick was guarding his silence like a shield, and the looming question of a leak hung over everything. And somewhere in the shadows, the threat of exposure grew stronger, ready to shatter everything once the first real page hit the light by. The following week, the possibility of a leak had evolved from whispers into a living, breathing fear that haunted both camps day and night. Every news outlet had their exclusive source. Every blogger claimed they had seen a piece of the document, and every fan demanded the truth. The court's decision to seal Kendrick's contract had backfired spectacularly. Instead of silencing, speculation ignited a wildfire that no one could control. The mystery transformed into obsession, and people were willing to believe anything if it meant filling the blanks. Drake's team felt the weight of the storm more than ever. Inside a dimly lit office in Los Angeles, his lawyers sat around a long polished table, papers scattered like confetti from a war no one wanted to admit they were losing. "We're bleeding out there," one lawyer said, his voice trembling with exhaustion. "Every hour that contract stays hidden, the narrative slips further away from us. We can't spin this forever." Another, more aggressive, shot back, "Then we change the game. We don't wait for the leak, we create one. We drop something that makes Kendrick look worse, something that shifts the spotlight." Drake sat at the head of the table, silent for a long time before finally replying, "No, desperation looks weak. We wait, and when they slip, that's when we strike." His calmness infuriated some, but also reminded them why he had survived so many storms. Drake didn't rush moves, he waited for openings. Meanwhile, Kendrick's world was unraveling in quieter, more personal ways. His closest allies began questioning his decisions openly. At a private gathering in Compton, one longtime friend confronted him in front of others. "This silence you're keeping, it's not strength anymore, it's killing. You, fans are starting to doubt, and doubt is poison." Kendrick's eyes burned as he responded, "Let them doubt. Doubt turns into questions, and questions turn into power. I don't need to explain myself to people who weren't in that courtroom." His words carried conviction, but his friend shook his head. And when your own family starts to doubt, what then? The room fell into an uneasy silence. It was true, Kendrick's family fractures were now public knowledge, and every argument inside his household seemed to make its way online. Fans were merciless. Social media posts mocked Kendrick as the silent king with too much to hide, while others praised him as the last man with integrity in an industry built on lies. TikTok videos dissected his vault post frame by frame, while Drake's nightclub speech replayed endlessly on Instagram. Every platform became a battlefield, fans hurling insults back and forth like soldiers in a digital war. The heat grew unbearable when a major entertainment outlet published what they called an authenticated excerpt from Kendrick's contract. The page described a clause labeled strategic market positioning, which allegedly required Kendrick to delay certain album releases depending on the commercial performance of rival artists, particularly those tied to Drake's label. The implications were explosive. If true, Kendrick had been weaponizing his silence not just for art, but as a calculated business tactic. The excerpt ignited chaos. Drake's supporters claimed it proved their idol had been sabotaged for years, while Kendrick's defenders insisted the page was fake. Another smear campaign designed to destroy him. Drake seized the moment. Within hours of the article, he posted a photo on social media of himself standing in front of a giant hourglass captioned, "Truth doesn't hide forever." It was subtle but cutting, a declaration that he believed the leak had confirmed his suspicions all along. His fans roared in approval, but Kendrick refused to take the bait. Instead, he dropped a freestyle on a friend's livestream. No names. No direct shots, just cryptic lines. When they paint shadows on my wall, I light the candle brighter. They chase the script. I write the ending. The freestyle went viral, hailed by fans as genius by some and as evasive by others. The divide deepened as tensions boiled, industry insiders began to panic. Label executives feared the scandal might destabilize deals worth millions. In a closed meeting, one executive reportedly said, "If artists see Kendrick pulling strings like this, every one of them will demand the same power. This isn't just his fight anymore, this is about keeping the machine running." Another countered with frustration, "The machine's already breaking. If that contract gets fully exposed, we'll lose control." The stakes had officially escalated from personal rivalry to industry-wide survival. Amid the chaos, an unexpected voice entered the conversation, Drake's ex-partner, the mother of his child. In an interview that aired on a popular talk show, she was asked about the case. Her answer was vague yet powerful. "I've seen how much this weighs on him, how it eats at him late at night. People think it's just about music, but it's not. It's about legacy, about what he leaves behind for his son. That's why this hurts so much." Her emotional response tugged at fans' hearts, reframing the narrative as more than a feud it was now about family, about children growing up under the shadow of contracts and courtrooms. Kendrick's family drama wasn't far behind. A cousin went live on Instagram, clearly upset, claiming that Kendrick's silence was tearing their household apart. "We're getting threats, people showing up at our door. All because of a piece of paper nobody can see. This ain't right." The livestream ended abruptly, but not before thousands had witnessed the cracks forming in the Lamar family. Fans debated furiously, was Kendrick protecting his family by staying silent? Or was his silence the very thing putting them in danger? The climax of this chapter came late one night when a hacker group claimed they had obtained the full contract and would release it within 72 hours. Their statement appeared on social media. Cryptic but chilling. "You can hide from the courts, you can hide from the fans, but you can't hide from us." Screenshots of their posts spread instantly, throwing both camps into chaos. Lawyers scrambled, executives panicked, and fans sat on the edge of their seats, counting down the hours. Drake's camp was reportedly jubilant in private. "This is it," one insider whispered. "If those hackers are real, Kendrick's finished." But Kendrick remained stoic. Speaking to his inner circle, he said quietly, "If it leaks, it leaks. But remember, truth in the wrong hands is just another lie." His words puzzled his team, but also suggested that he was preparing for impact. No matter how devastating, the clock was ticking, and with each hour, the fear of exposure grew heavier. Was the hacker threat real, or just another ploy in a battle already riddled with lies? The answer would decide not only the fate of Kendrick and Drake, but perhaps the future of the entire industry that depended on keeping such contracts hidden in the shadows. And as the 72-hour deadline loomed closer, fans across the world refreshed their screens endlessly, waiting for the storm that could change everything. The countdown felt like the world's longest drumroll. For 72 hours, fans, journalists, and insiders alike hovered over their screens, waiting for the hacker group to make good on their promise. Social media turned into a live arena, hashtags flashing across timelines like fireworks. Hashtag Kendrick contract, hashtag Drake truth, hashtag leak the paper. News anchors framed it as if the fate of hip-hop itself rested on whether a shadowy group of anonymous hackers would push send. By the final 12 hours, streams dedicated solely to the countdown had millions of viewers. It was no longer about curiosity, it had become spectacle, a collective obsession that gripped the culture. Drake, despite his public confidence, couldn't completely hide his anxiety. Those closest to him noticed the way his jaw tightened when his phone buzzed, the way he disappeared into quiet rooms for whispered conversations. Behind the scenes, his lawyers worked frantically, pulling every legal lever possible to block distribution of stolen documents. "If they leak it, it's theft," one attorney barked during a meeting. "We can have them shut down instantly." But another lawyer, grim-faced, shook his head. "You can't shut down the internet. Once it's out forever." Drake leaned back in his chair, his voice low but sharp. Then we don't let it get out, whatever it takes. His team knew what that meant. Kendrick, on the other hand, appeared eerily calm. His closest friend asked him during a private studio session, "Aren't you scared, man? If they drop the contract, they'll twist everything against you." Kendrick simply replied, "Fear is what they want. I've already accepted that the truth isn't safe in anyone's hands. They'll spin it no matter what, but me? I'll still be me." His words carried a strange serenity, as if he had already made peace with whatever storm was about to break. Still, those around him weren't so sure. His family, already shaken by online harassment, begged him to make a statement, to take control of the narrative before it destroyed them. But Kendrick refused, insisting silence was his shield. When the countdown hit 0, the world held its breath. The hacker group posted a link on multiple platforms, claiming it led to the full contract. Fans rushed to click, and for a brief, chaotic moment, servers crashed under the weight of millions. Screens loaded, anticipation peaked, and then confusion. The file wasn't a contract at all. Instead, it contained hundreds of private emails, messages, and draft documents connected to both Drake and Kendrick. Personal conversations, heated arguments with executives, private notes between family members, all exposed in an instant. The internet exploded. Instead of one explosive contract, the world now had a treasure chest of raw, messy humanity. Among the leaks were angry emails where Drake accused his label of treating me like a puppet, and drafts of songs Kendrick had written but never released, versus questioning his loyalty to friends and family. Even more shocking were messages between executives discussing strategies to pit the two rappers against each other for profit. One email bluntly stated, "The rivalry sells records. Keep the tension alive. Control the story." The revelation that some of their feud had been manufactured by higher powers sent fans into hysteria, but buried deeper in the files were darker truths. A message exchange hinted that Kendrick's contract indeed contained unusual clauses restrictions on timing, royalties tied to rival performance, and hidden ownership stakes. Yet, there was also evidence suggesting Drake had knowledge of these terms long before the case, raising questions about why he pushed for public exposure in the first place. Had he wanted to destroy Kendrick, or was he afraid Kendrick's power could eventually eclipse his own? The fallout was immediate. Families were shattered as private texts between Drake and relatives surfaced, revealing moments of vulnerability he had never shared publicly. Fans saw a side of him they didn't recognize. A son worried about disappointing his mother, a father terrified of failing his child. For Kendrick, the leaks exposed personal rifts within his family, bitter arguments about money, fame, and loyalty. One particularly painful message showed his brother accusing him of choosing contracts over kin. The human cost of the leak was brutal, and the world devoured it greedily. Both camps scrambled to recover. Drake's team tried to dismiss the leaks as fabricated, but experts confirmed their authenticity. Kendrick remained silent for 2 days before finally appearing in a surprise livestream. His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed exhaustion. "They wanted the contract," he said softly. "Instead, they got the truth. Not my truth, not Drake's truth, the truth of an industry that feeds off division. They pit us against each other because it makes money. They make us bleed so they can profit, and you all just saw it with your own eyes." The live stream cut out abruptly, but his words reverberated across the world. Drake, never one to let the spotlight shift too far, responded the very next day. Standing on stage during a packed concert, he addressed the crowd. "They think they can use our words to break us. But all I see is proof that I've been fighting my whole life against people trying to control me. If Kendrick wants to act like silence is strength, that's his choice. Me? I fight with my voice." His fans roared, framing him as the warrior refusing to bow down. The cultural divide widened. Some fans saw Kendrick as the quiet prophet exposing systemic corruption, while others crowned Drake as the defiant fighter standing tall against manipulation. Families were caught in the crossfire, Kendrick's loved ones struggling with newfound scrutiny, Drake's relatives facing harassment online. The feud had escaped their control entirely, morphing into something bigger than either of them. Industry insiders, however, were the ones truly terrified. The leaked emails had exposed their schemes, their backroom manipulations, and their calculated efforts to manufacture drama. Artists across the industry began demanding answers. If Kendrick had been bound by unusual clauses, how many others were trapped in similar deals? If Drake had been manipulated into feuds, how many other rivalries were just corporate puppetry? Executives tried to contain the damage, but the cracks were too wide. The anger too loud, and just when it seemed the storm couldn't grow any darker, another twist emerged. Among the leaked files was a draft of a secret agreement not between Kendrick and his label, but between their two camps. The draft suggested there had once been discussions about a joint project, a collaboration designed to shock the world. But the deal had collapsed, apparently sabotaged by the very executives who had profited off their rivalry. Fans were stunned. The idea that Drake and Kendrick might have once worked together, only to be torn apart for profit, sent shockwaves. Through the culture, people began asking the unthinkable: had their entire feud been a tragic manipulation? Both Drake and Kendrick avoided addressing the joint project draft directly, but the silence only added to the intrigue. Fans created fan-made covers of the album that never was, imagining what could have been. Memes flooded the internet, mixing grief and humor. But beneath the jokes was a growing rage at an industry that had sacrificed unity for money. As days turned into weeks, the dust refused to settle. Kendrick withdrew further into silence, appearing only in fleeting glimpses. Drake kept performing, but every word was scrutinized, every move dissected. Their families tried to retreat into privacy, but the leaks made that impossible. The world had seen too much, and it refused to look away. In the end, the contract itself remained sealed, untouched by public eyes. Yet the leaks had made it almost irrelevant. The real damage had been done not by the paper itself, but by everything that surrounded it: the betrayals, the manipulations, the secrets, the families caught in the crossfire. And for the fans, one haunting question lingered. Was this truly about Kendrick versus Drake, or had it always been about something far bigger, something they were never meant to see? The courtroom battle had sparked the storm, but the leaks had rewritten the story. And as the industry scrambled to rebuild its walls, the world watched with newfound suspicion, wondering what other secrets lay hidden, waiting for the next gavel strike to bring them crashing down. And so, here we are after weeks of whispers, sealed documents, shocking leaks, and a storm that shook not only Drake and Kendrick, but the entire music industry. The truth remains, both revealed and hidden at the same time. The contract itself is still sealed away, locked behind courtroom walls. Yet the chaos around it has spilled into every corner of their lives. Families torn apart, friendships questioned, fans divided, and executives exposed for pulling strings behind the scenes. What started as a simple ruling to block public access has turned into one of the most explosive sagas hip-hop has ever witnessed. But the questions remain. What exactly is written in Kendrick's contract that the court was so desperate to keep buried? Did Drake know more than he let on, and is that why he fought so hard to expose it? Or is this feud nothing more than a carefully constructed illusion, orchestrated to keep us watching while others profit in the shadows? Fans are still debating, insiders are still whispering, and both Drake and Kendrick remain caught in a story that feels far from over, and that's where you come in. What do you think is really going on behind the curtain? Is Kendrick hiding something dangerous, or is he protecting himself from an industry designed to destroy him? Is Drake the fighter for truth he claims to be, or is he just another pawn in a bigger game? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because your voice keeps this conversation alive. If you enjoy diving into this drama with us, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more explosive breakdowns, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next twist. Trust us, this story is far from finished, and you'll want to be here when the next chapter drops.